Prologue. Shadows of the Scribe. In the year of our Lord 1347, as the Black Death ravaged the kingdoms of Europe, the Abbey of Blackwater stood defiant on the jagged cliffs of England's northern coast, like a barnacle clinging to a storm-battered ship. It endured the eternal roar of the sea below, a furious symphony that masked the distant cries of the afflicted on the mainland. Within this fortress of stone and faith, the monks of the Order of St. Augustine sought refuge from the plague's merciless grasp. They trusted in their isolation, walls carved from the rock, gates sealed against the world, and the relentless North Sea, serving as an unbreachable moat. Yet isolation invited its own shadows, and within these sacred halls, a darkness deeper than the pestilence began to stir. Brother Elias, the Abbey's most devoted scribe, toiled in the scriptorium under the dim flicker of a single tallow candle. His quill scraped across the vellum with deliberate precision, each mark a silent prayer against the encroaching doom. At 42, Elias embodied unyielding piety, his frame gaunt from years of fasting and vigil, his eyes shadowed by countless nights, illuminating manuscripts that exalted God's glory. But this night his task transcended ordinary transcription. Before him lay a relic of forbidden knowledge, smuggled into the abbey weeks earlier via a merchant's cart, just before the plague barricaded the roads. It carried the seal of a long-forgotten alchemist from Emperor Charles IV's court in Prague, a tome rumored to hold secrets, not of transmuting metals into gold, but of weaving words into unbreakable power. The air in the scriptorium hung heavy with the aroma of fresh ink and ancient parchment, undercut by the sharp tang of sea salt drifting through the narrow arrow-slit windows. Outside, the wind wailed like a chorus of tormented spirits, driving waves into frothy chaos against the cliffs below. Elias paused, his hand quivering as he refreshed his quill in the ink pot. The plague had already stolen 2 brothers to the infirmary. Their shrouded forms had been consigned to the sea that very morning. Murmurs among the monks invoked divine wrath and unabsolved sins. But Elias discerned a deeper truth. The real transgression resided in the pages spread before him. The manuscript unfolded as a maze of Latin verses, interwoven with diagrams of celestial alignments and cryptic symbols that eluded straightforward deciphering. As Elias delved deeper, he uncovered concealed strata, marginal notes in a faded script, glosses that pointed to a cipher intricately threaded through the text. These words, when interpreted in a precise order beneath the glow of a specific constellation, disclosed prophecies not of celestial salvation, but of terrestrial chaos. Sovereigns deposed, realms splintered, and a shadowy lineage of rulers orchestrating events from the darkness. Elias's heart thundered as he unraveled the first concealed passage. It whispered of a veiled council, a clandestine assembly of nobles and scholars who had secreted their machinations within sacred texts to elude the church's vigilant inquisitors. The alchemist's opus was no idle fancy. It served as a key to a sprawling network that traversed continents, from the Holy Roman Empire to the royal courts of England and France. And now in this secluded abbey, Elias had grasped a thread capable of dismantling it all. But why this place? Why in this moment, as the Black Death scourged the land like a divine retribution? He glanced over his shoulder, the candle's flame dancing erratically, and casting elongated shadows across the deserted rows of wooden desks, empty since the evening vespers. The abbey lay hushed, broken only by the distant toll of the Compline bell echoing through the cloister. Brother Thomas, the young novice who aided him, had withdrawn early, gripped by a feverish ache in his limbs, a harbinger that chilled Elias more than the salty draught from the sea. Was it the plague's insidious touch, or a malice more deliberate? He banished the notion. Paranoia was the devil's insidious murmur. Resuming his vigil, Elias wove his own encryptions into the margins. Should the manuscript harbor perils, he resolved to shield it with a cipher born of his ingenuity, a tapestry of deceptions, misleading paths, and veiled truths concealed amid the obvious. Drawing from the arcane steganography of his pre-vows youth, he substituted letters with numerals, reversed phrases, and infused symbols from alchemical lore. Let he who seeks the truth bear the weight of the cross, he etched faintly, assured that only a soul versed in sacred writ and hidden arts could decode it. As the night wore on, a tempest amassed its fury over the North Sea. Thunder rumbled like the admonition of an enraged god, while lightning slashed the darkness, bathing the scriptorium in fleeting brilliance and animating the page's ornate illuminations. A dragon coiled about a throne, its scales etched with runes that seemed to undulate in the unsteady glow. Elias pressed on with frantic determination, his quill racing over the vellum. He had exposed a name, a pedigree rooted in the Norman conquest, with descendants who yet navigated the realms of influence. If unveiled, it might kindle wars, unseat kings, or draw the Inquisition's inferno to the very gates of Blackwater. A faint creak resonated through the chamber, the scriptorium's door easing ajar. Elias froze, his breath suspended in the tumult of the gale beyond. "Who goes there?" he whispered, his voice a fragile thread against the storm's onslaught. From the shadows stepped a figure, enveloped in the hooded robes of the order. Though the face was shrouded, the voice carried a familiar timbre, that of Abbot Reginald himself. "Brother Elias, you labor deep into the night. The Lord extols diligence, but even the faithful must seek rest." Elias inclined his head in deference, masking the quiver in his hands. "The work demands urgency, Father Abbot. The manuscript, it harbors depths beyond our initial reckoning." The abbot advanced, his gaze alight in the candle's wavering flame. "Indeed it does, and that is precisely why it requires safeguarding." His hand rested upon Elias's shoulder, the clasp firm, bordering on proprietorial. "Have you penetrated the cipher?" Elias nodded with measured caution, his thoughts swirling in a torrent. How deep ran the abbot's awareness? Had he orchestrated the manuscript's arrival, not for mere safekeeping, but to entomb it for sever, or to wield its revelations for his own ends? "Good," the abbot intoned softly. "Then you grasp the peril it poses. There are those who would slay for such wisdom, even among these sanctified stones." The tempest unleashed its full wrath then, rain assaulting the stone facade like volleys from a celestial barrage. Lightning fractured the sky, and in that searing flash, Elias caught sight of an object in the abbot's other hand. a diminutive vial, its contents glistening with an oily sheen. Was it venom, or simply ink? Paranoia seized him afresh, tightening its coils around his resolve. "I will finish the encoding tonight," Elias declared, infusing his voice with a steadiness he scarcely felt. "By dawn, it shall be secure." The abbot smiled, a slender arc that failed to warm his gaze. "See that it is. The plague takes many forms, brother, some more subtle than others." With that cryptic farewell, the abbot withdrew, the heavy door groaning shut behind him and sealing Elias once more in solitude. The scribe exhaled shakily, his pulse still hammering like a war drum in his ears. He bent again to the manuscript, forcing his trembling hand to steady as the quill resumed its dance across the vellum. Layer by layer, he wove the final threads of his cipher, subtle inversions, numerical substitutions, symbols that masked revelation as ornament. The storm raged unabated outside, rain battering the walls like an impatient besieger. Yet within the scriptorium, the only sound was the soft scratch of quill on parchment and the occasional sputter of the dying candle. But as the hours stretched into the depths of night, a profound heaviness descended upon his limbs, as if invisible chains were binding him to the desk. An insidious fog clouded his thoughts, blurring the edges of his focus like mist rolling in from the sea. The candle sputtered fitfully, its flame waning as wax pooled on the wooden surface below, dark and viscous, like congealing blood. By morning the storm had subsided, cloaking the abbey in a thick veil of mist that muted the world beyond its walls. The monks convened for lauds in the chapel, their voices rising in solemn chants that echoed through the cloister like a plea for mercy. But Brother Elias was absent from their number, his customary place at the scriptorium bench unoccupied, a void that stirred uneasy glances among the brethren. The brethren searched every corner of the abbey and the storm-lashed cliffs below, yet found nothing. No body lay broken upon the rocks. No footprints marred the sodden path to the causeway, now swallowed by the returning tide. The scriptorium stood exactly as Elias had left it, the completed manuscript sealed with a fresh ribbon of wax, the quill still resting in its groove, the candle reduced to a cold stub of tallow. It was as though the scribe had simply stepped away for a moment and been erased from the world.